Is that you or me? All right, give me my other screen back, please. And make sure my sound is way down and my microphone is way down. Phone is off.
Yeah, didn't get anybody else.
Hey, 7:30, I call the meeting to order and have everybody stand for the pledge, please. Dad back lets me stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You ain't looking so good. No, I don't feel too good. If I could get back out to my car, Herbert run the meeting. All right, thank everybody for coming. Full crowd. Wow, what'd we do wrong? We'll find out, I guess. Has everybody had a chance on the board to review the town board minutes from the 13th of September? If so, does anybody have any additions, corrections, requests for changes of the clerk's minutes? Hearing none, those are the clerk's minutes as submitted. That brings us to public comment. I had a previous public comment request, so I don't mean to put you right on the spot, Steve, but you're up.
How do I do this? Do I stand approach?
If you wouldn't mind standing and just speaking where you are.
Oh, you got it. So half the board here either has relationship or goes with the same situation that I do right now. But the rainwater that comes from the church, the hill all the way through, constant issue. Obviously, this is all public land, and I don't know if the town has ever considered about making sort of drainage back in. In the last year, Tamarack had a sinkhole that opened up next to her building. I graveled my backyard because they filled that all up. And then 3 weeks ago, the first time in 7 years, our basement flooded. So I wasn't sure if there was something the town has ever considered doing, or if this is a personal matter, because the reason why I want to bring it up was because if we're already planning on pouring more gravel down there, backyard, work hard on it, so it goes into the Brickhouse property. So I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this before my time with Mary Ann was here. I know she's had a couple of major issues over there too. So yeah, that's the question.
Weren't her issues more directed towards when the drain froze at the road and it flooded to the front side?
It's all the same issue, believe it or not. It got worse when the theater was torn down. It used to just run pretty much out the front there. But when the theater was there, I got this back from Bill Farrow. He's still in my email chain as a previous council person. So the water runoff on the road. Do we allow snowmobile traffic? If they do, work with them. That's us. When he owned the building, had an issue with water runoff in the spring back in 1990. As long as snow wasn't plowed into the drainage culvert by the front door of the house, it flowed okay. Or if it was, it flowed okay. If the snowbank was plowed there, if it's not plowed, it doesn't go into the culvert. The issue clearly becomes, what do we do with the water and where can it go? And when I say we, it's technically the only issue we create is the snowmobile path that cuts through there.
Yeah, that's not where the water's.
I understand.
And I get tons and tons and tons of water in the grocery store, tons. And when after I paved it, I get more water. Now it's but fortunately for me, I guess, underneath my back dock is all sand. And I've never had a drop of water in the cellar ever. And I've had this much water coming off that mountain, fill that whole road, comes in the back, and it goes right down into that sand, it goes right underneath this space. So I don't have, other than having to wade through it in a storm, because it gets very deep behind my store. But I'm getting a lot of it. I really didn't know how much you get over there, and maybe you get it from the mountain further over, because it's all that mountain water coming down.
It's all wet.
I get it from everywhere now.
Yeah,
So this last summer has been worse because getting more water from behind Archie's now, when anything else is coming through what's his property and then drains over to ours. So I'm not sure if there's
behind
over
Archie's.
there. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot more water that's behind, not Archie's old place, but now. Place.
Oh, Greco's.
There's three areas that comes off the hill, and one of them is captured and it's taken care of by the same sand that Herb's got it.
Yeah.
There's two culverts over by
Behind
the
behind
church.
Church is, there's a whole area there.
Yeah, then there's behind Ace, it comes down, and I think that's the one that might be affecting you more. And then the major one, believe it or not, that's even worse is the one that comes down right behind Marlowe's gift shop now, in between the rental. And he's had flooding in there, I think, 3 out of the last 5 years. We have gone to DOT because if we try, and I say we, because of the snowmobile trail, try and do anything with the collected spot at that first one, where do we put it? The only place to put it is into their storm drainage. You could build as massive of a dry well as you want, but unless you can divert it over towards his property or where it drains behind the church next to Herb's, because there's 2 drainage pipes that go right into that wooded area behind the church of the lakes, and it just perks down. It's DOT. We talked to DOT when they redid the road. We talked to DOT before they redid the road. We've been dealing with this for over 20 years that I know of. And DOT turned their back on it. I tried pointing out that they did the basically the same thing up at Durkin's property when there was a washout and all that sand went down into Fifth Lake. They went way up on Durkin's property and put a capture area in. That's what's needed.
Okay.
They refuse to respond to that. I hate to say this, but if you and some of the other business owners have personally started the letter writing campaign to DOT, probably it'd have more traction than Sean asking or any of us asking. They look at me like I've got 3 heads. I can't get the church wall replaced when they were redoing the road. And they've done that in every other town known to man.
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
No, I know. I mean, if anybody has a point of contact or anything like that, they can pass along at some point.
We can dig a couple up.
Okay, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. But
That's at least a start.
yeah, I mean, we'll support you. I just don't know what we can do with that massive water ourselves, other than divert it to the state. And I'll tell you right now, they'll tell us no, unless we can create some other form of situation. There used to be a duck pond in front of my wife's office.
Why not? That's what's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
So
I don't want it to seem like I'm just trying to cure something for me. It took them 8 years to figure out how to put another drop inlet in front of the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And fix a broken pipe. And boy, wouldn't it have been nice if when they were doing that, they put a Y on that pipe?
I mean, half the time before they even fix it, all they do is just drop a bunch of salt in it and it's did nothing at all.
Yes.
They have flushed it out a couple times. It must just not be big enough.
One, it's not big enough, and 2, there was a break in it and it was catching and building sand up and making a dam inside. So again, calcium chloride's not going to take a sand dam out.
No.
All right. I wish I could give you a better answer right now.
No, I mean, just an answer, just, as far as where it can go next, or something like that, that's just the next step for it.
Thank you.
So, awesome. Thanks. guys.
Yeah. Public comments still open? Peggy?
I just wanted to ask if there was any updates on Townsend Trail and grant for pickleball court.
I haven't heard anything on grant from pickleball court, and I don't see Dan here tonight. He's not online, is he, Dennis? Okay. I had a conversation with Jane myself last week at the county. She's promised to come over and hold Bonnie's hand on anything with the last remaining agreements. I know the highway is finished the section of that one piece of property. Have you seen that? Cutting back out towards the road and going into the woods.
I did.
And we're doing what we can legally right now. I don't have any other updates other than that. Yep.
Just would like some clarification on this Eagle Cliff Trail. What is going on, where we can find more information about it?
Right here. It is my desire, and I believe the board's desire, to create a handicap access point on Evans Road for a trail that can be utilized by a wheelchair to Eagle Cliff. There is one lot left that Mr. Deming owns. He's the surveyor that has done previous work with the town. My wife and he were partners in the property. We sold off to him, and in the agreement, he donated the top of Eagle Cliff to the town if we put a trail in. If we don't put a trail in 4 years, 3 years now, I think. 3 years now, it goes back to him. It's his desire and my desire to have gated access at the end of the driveway, because there's still one more lot to be built past where the end of the culvert or the end of the cul-de-sac is. There's one more private building lot back there. And that would be controlled through the clerk's office with handicap push pins, so that it can't be just anybody driving in there. And there'd be a handicap trail.
Our concern is that you're creating another smaller version of Rocky Mountain. Cars parks up and down Evans Drive. And you can have a push pin there, and people that don't have a push pin will just park on Evans Drive. I already see surveying going on. I already see trees marked to be cut down. I already see a culvert going in.
Mhm.
There's been no contact to the residents of Evans Drive as to what you're doing. Are you paving the road? Are you widening the road? Are you cutting down the cul-de-sac? Or lights going in?
We've been discussing this at the board level for I think 3 years
I'd say
now.
3 years.
3 years. I don't believe, and I don't mean to be disingenuous with any of this, that it's been held in the dark or permission needed from anybody else on the road to put a handicap trail in it. It's not my desire to create a Rocky Point situation there. If we have to put no parking signs on the road and ticket people that are parking illegally, I would do that. I don't think it's our desire at this point to pave the road. I'm not going to say it's not in the future. If once all the housing lots are done and built, that it might be paved. Probably will be paved sometime in the next 50 years, would be my guess. You know, it's a road in the town of Inlet. I can tell by the faces that I'm not giving the answer that you want to hear.
Well, no, I've looked at minutes and seen, I've read any of the details
Okay.
that you have said. I mean, I've read in the minutes that there's a trail, but not the details to what you are describing.
Yeah, it has not been my desire, or I believe I'm speaking for the board on this after, kicking this around for a couple of years, to create a Rocky Point situation there. The desire was that by being hidden back off the Uncas Road and back on another sub-private road, that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't, well, we live in the information age and it's a different world. I get that, but, placing signs at the start of the road. I mean, there is another situation that we've been tasked to deal with, but it's not our responsibility because it's in another county. The trail that goes up there now is an illegal trail. I'm not looking to advertise this as anything other than a handicap trail.
Well, and speaking as a physical therapist who has worked with disabled people for 37 years, how are you going to put a wheelchair accessible trail up that mountain without creating miles and miles and miles of switchbacks to get the rise or run appropriate to the road for that access?
When we walked it with a surveyor and did the first walkthrough, there probably would be a need for at least 7 switchbacks. At least 7 switchbacks. I originally started this when my father had a stroke, when my mother-in-law was infirm. I'll be honest with you right now, my wife has ALS. I'm pushing for the trail to go in there. I'd like her to use it before she passes. And then I'd like future people to be able to use it. If you want to know where I sit, that's where I sit. And I'll get very emotional about it. I'll let other people talk about it. I'm not looking to create anything that is not usable. We just went up, I'll encourage anybody to go take a look at Dillon Park outside of Long Lake. Has anybody ever been there? International Paper put in a really neat camping area with 7 sites with lean-tos that are up off the ground that even have little ramps that go up so the wheelchairs can get into them. Paul Smith maintains it. There's miles of trails that are gravel bed, like a running track bed, not like what New York State does, but putting oversized pea stone down that you can't roll a wheelchair through. I'm looking for something that is truly accessible. That's my desire.
And what was that location? Talk about that.
Dillon Park, John Dillon Park. It's right outside of Long Lake on the road to Tupper. It's right out there. You go to the top of the hill as you climb out of Long Lake. Well, you know, there's a little trading post that sells those lobster rolls on Friday. Go on a Friday, have a lobster roll. We went camping there. My wife wore out the battery in her little chair. We had an awesome time. I'd like to see a little something. There is a dearth, the right word, not enough, dearth of trails for handicapped people in the park. The state's tried to do a couple back in the Moose River Plains, but they put the wrong product down on the trails. This is something we can do here. That's where this comes from. That was, you all bought lots from the Evans family. You know, it's not our intent to step on your toes or create a hazardous situation back there.
And
And I appreciate that.
right. That's why we're here to find out more. And so I assume the town is going to maintain the trail, is that?
That's my hope. You know, if we set it up, it's same as we do the Toby path that's out there now, that the Townsend Trail, hopefully if we can get that finished. That's the other thing we've been up against. We've been promising the Townsend Trail for how long now, Peggy?
Almost 16 years.
Well, that's promising, but once we started construction of it, it's been 8 years. These things don't happen overnight. I'd be a fool if I thought my wife was going to be able to use it, but I'm still pushing forward with it. As far as design, we don't have anything on paper. This has just pretty much been the surveyor walking it. Can we put a road here? Can we do this? We haven't gotten to spend any engineering money on it yet.
Well, that's our other concern with, you know, we just heard about water runoff. I mean, what's that gonna do? Switchbacks and.
7 switchbacks up that mountain, and I assume you're gonna talk about paving.
My intent would be the same gravel bed if you do it right, and that's why I want to go over to Dillon Park. They've cut when you cut the trail under the side of the hill, it's a bench cut. They did the softest bench cuts I've ever seen, so that you don't have a high duff falling off on the top or fall off on the side. They did it right, and the drainage is right on it. The terrain there dictates everything you're going to do, including the drainage. I'll walk it with anybody that wants to walk it, and I'll show you what we had in mind when we were looking at it. It's,
Great.
you know,
We would love to.
I have to get my back better first.
What's the plans for the cul-de-sac?
Right now, I think we've been talking, I think with you guys, Sean's been talking with you back and forth on what trees we shouldn't cut. We'd like to be able to get the plow to be able to turn around better there. I'd be lying if I didn't say we'd want a little bit of a wider shoulder there for maybe 1 or 2 cars, you know.
I mean, down Evans Drive, you're talking?
Yes, and at the cul-de-sac. He asked what the plans were for the cul-de-sac. I think going the far bank towards where the road's gonna go in is what you were looking to do improvement.
In there and extend the cul-de-sac, so the truck doesn't have to back all the way out.
Yeah.
That's not really reasonable.
Right, and that way we wouldn't have to cut down any trees in the center of the cul-de-sac, correct?
It should be given a wide enough berth to,
Because I had heard that was a concern that the residents had back there too. We don't have too many cul-de-sacs in the town of Inlet. It'd be nice to keep one.
I said reserve one.
Yes, and I think the highway guy feels the same way.
John, who did the John Dillon part?
International paper, in conjunction with Paul Smith's. And right now it's I'd call it 5-6 miles back in the woods over a real rough dirt road. They're still logging on the property. There's a lake back there. The logging helps support the campsites. Paul Smith's students staff it in the summer. They go as far as to load your wood crib for you when you make a reservation to use the campsite. They've got a gator that they'll take you back all your equipment, so that you can enjoy the wheelchair just going around the park. It's beyond cool. I put some Facebook pictures up of it on my site if anybody wants to go look at it. Sorry, it's international paper. John Dillon was a graduate of Paul Smith's. I'll go through the little bio. He was tasked when the New York State was sued by somebody when the handicap statute came out federally, where you had the American Civil Liberties, I think, Act. I'm going to misquote a whole bunch of things here.
Individuals with Disability Act.
Thank you. I figured you'd be familiar with that. My daughter's so mad at me right now in the back of my head, that my occupational therapist daughter. Anyways, New York State didn't have anything. A commission was created to try and come up with something. They realized very quickly New York State wasn't going to pull it off properly. And at the same time, a commission member was in Russia, fell off a horse and broke his back and became paralyzed. He was a buddy of John Dillon's. The two of them got together and said, hey, we've got this piece of property with 7 lakes on it. Let's do something here. And that's what they did. And they spent a ton of money putting it in. I'm hoping not to spend a ton of money to get it done what we want done. I think the road, the culvert, and the parking area won't be that bad. And the 7 switchbacks we'll have to look at. I mean, we're still going to be going for grant money for that. I mean, so do I see it happening within the next couple of years? Probably not.
Well, and I know you've looked at it longer than any of us. And I do not know who owns the property, but from a logistics standpoint, does it make any sense to access the parking lot from Uncas Road?
It's unfortunately, it's all hemmed in by private property at this point in time. It's not my intention to do that. It's not supposed to be a nighttime use spot. That's the other thing, so that you don't have that traffic, I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen it. There's already people that are walking up that way anyways.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, so if we can try and control it in an appropriate manner, I think that's the next best step. I mean, I can't tell you the beer cans I picked up going that route. Unfortunately. All right, I don't mean to belabor.
Yeah, thank you.
If that's enough,
I haven't seen the plan, but I just did a quick calculation. It's 125-foot rise over 1,100 feet. It's not shocking. It seems like it goes straight up. And I know it gets steep right towards the end, but overall, it's only 125-foot rise from the parking.
It's like 10 feet for every 100 feet.
But it is in the last, it's probably more like in the last 400 feet.
Is the most progressive.
well, actually, no, once you gain altitude, you're almost a steady pitch to Eagle Cliff. From the parking area, that's probably 5 switchbacks right there. Traversing like this, long switchbacks. Then you've got a nice glade going into the next rock outcropping. And then there's a really weird 2 switchbacks that get you up onto where there's a little clearing right now. And then you traverse out, and there will be a fill area in between the clearing area now and the next cusp. I don't know if I'm sure you've all walked that way yourselves.
Never.
What is the maximum percent grade allowable for a handicap accessible?
I don't have that on the top of my head.
Well, wheelchair ramp is 1 inch a foot. So
Yeah,
I
thank
don't know what that
Yeah,
is.
yeah. And it was our intention at start not to have it a true handicap access with the taking ADA into compliance. But I'm getting more and more that way, as you can understand.
Please keep in mind, we also spent good money on buying that property for the way it was.
Yep.
It is right now. I mean,
Well, do I have to apologize for the horse manure too?
no, do that. No, fine.
We're not looking to put an outhouse there or privies or bathroom. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Anything else for public comment? Yes.
Hi, I'm Jean. I moved up to Uncas Road. I bought a property back in, back in 2013. I'm up there permanently now. I had a log cabin fire last July 4th. In 2021, I had a propane refrigerator. I had reached out to NISA. I used to be the 7th place down, from the electrical pole. I reached out to them in October. I got a letter from NISAC, November 9th, saying they would look into it. They wanted me to put up $30,000 and, to do the building of the poles and everything. He says, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to reach out to all the properties. I don't have that list. And he said, okay, and then everybody's gonna have to find an easement. Well, I know the utilities have a right of way down Uncas Road or any road. The Frontier ran their line. The other service goes to Evans Road. NISAC will not put in a telephone pole if you don't sign an easement. There's 2 people blocking easement. It's 2022. I have asthma. I did not want to put in, another propane refrigerator because of the fire. I mean, that happened at 2:30 in the morning. I had smoke alarms that woke me up. So I have another chance of life, but I am fighting to put, electric down the road. Is there anybody that can help me?
I have to ask whereabouts on the road, is that in the town of Long Lake or the town of Inlet?
It's Inlet. My address is Inlet, New York.
Mailing address or physical address?
The physical address is 893 Uncas Road.
Who do you pay your taxes
I pay them directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're counted on.
And that's the unfortunate nature that is Uncas Road. I understand where you are, and I think I thought the Electrification Act of 19, whatever it was, took care of all that, but apparently it didn't. They've been blocking that for a long time. And I don't mean to tell you you're in the wrong town hall, but unfortunately, especially if you're talking with NISAG, we're all National Grid.
National Grid
Right, but NISAC is on Uncas Road.
Yeah.
for
Just
how long, like,
It's just off the black, just off the blacktop.
Right.
I have friends there.
It's Town Long Lake.
Town Long Lake.
Laptop ends, and it extends
Right, but NISAC goes
a couple
down.
miles and a mile and a half or so, and then it comes back in as Town of Inlet.
Yeah, and both NISAG and I'll say it, National Grid, are in the unfortunate business right now of not believing that they're selling power to consumers that are going to pay money over the years. It floors me. Any small subdivision, as soon as you start talking power, the last one on the road, if he tries to get it first, has got to pay for everybody up front. My wife had to do that with Evans Road, for her mother, had to pay to have the power put all the way down to the end of the road. And I know on the Gilbert Road extension right now, the same thing's going on. And the person that asks first gets hit hardest. I'd be willing to work with, Clay. He's the supervisor up in, Long Lake. To do, since the power line starts on our property, our township, to see if we can help you. It's those 2 people that are blocking the right of way that are the biggest hurdle. And quite honestly, I think it's the power company that needs to tell them we're coming through anyways.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, I had reached out to several people. to help me. I have asthma, I have a nebulizer machine. I can't count on my generator. I have been hospitalized because I can't breathe when I get the gas. So what am I supposed to do?
I know what they're gonna tell you in the meantime. They'll tell you to put a solar array in with a battery backup and have your generators in case you don't have enough solar. And I'm not saying that's what I'm telling you to do, but that's what they'll tell you to do.
I already checked into that and they want, $46,000.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Amy, who's the codes officer up in, do you have any contact with them?
It's Harry Buxton.
Harry Buxton. I mean, maybe Clay, myself, Amy and Harry can work together on a joint. The best we can do is a joint letter and ask to have it done. And again, the squeaky wheel, a nice letter from you, spelling out all those needs and sending that letter on, believe it or not, to your representatives, both federal and state. Sometimes, and I hate to say this, who's your friend? Schumer, Chuck Schumer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Believe it or not, small little issues like that, he actually has been helpful. And I don't mean to say his plate, it's a small little issue, not on your plate. Okay?
Yeah, there's 7 other people that want electric also.
And again, personal letters of need speak the loudest. And we'd be willing to sign off and go along with that. Okay? All right.
Do you have access to a computer?
Right now, I'm having a problem with Frontier.
So, but maybe you could come in and Adele could print you a list of the people's names and their addresses that are your neighbors that you don't know.
Well, I actually went, and I knocked on doors.
Oh, well, that's a good way. In the summer.
Yeah, well, something is that. And I hear all kinds of stories.
What is your number again? What's your number on the road?
Oh, 893.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. And we wish us all luck with it. Anything else for public comment? All right, we do have some stuff on the agenda, I believe. All right. Communications, blasting actually did start last week up on the hill where T-Mobile and AT&T and our emergency communications are going to go. I believe Tarpon Towers is still in negotiations with National Grid, whatever you want to call them. They're talking 9 months for power. I understand that transformers are still being held up in COVID shipments, or at least that's their excuse. T-Mobile and the contractor are going to do everything they can to get the towers up prior to the end of the year. We're hoping that National Grid comes through, and I'll stop calling them National Grid if they actually do it. They refuse to allow the private contractors to bury the cable or the conduit themselves. They have to do it themselves, which is to me ridiculous. They've laid off everybody and their brother, and they've cut back staff so drastically. But on a project this big, they want to do the install themselves. And when they say themselves, I believe they're going to show up with a subcontractor.
Yep.
You can't make this stuff up. All right, planning board. I think I see a bunch of members of the planning board, our ZBA. We've got a proposed short-term rental regulations. Planning board has been working on diligently with legal staff for 2-3 years, not 2 years, 18 months, something like that. It's been back and forth. I have on page 9 and 10 of our agenda, schedule it to a public hearing notice. I would like to schedule a public hearing to open at our November meeting at 7:45. I would like to keep that public hearing open until the May or June meeting. We do not want to be the town that seems to rush things through. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to comment on this, digest it, send their comments in, allow the planning board, the town board to go back to work on it if need be, if we feel the suggestions are warranted. Am I missing anything? Anybody from the planning board or DBA want to pipe up on? Len, tag, you're it.
I just like to hear comments from the board.
Okay.
We heard from her. Anyone else?
You heard from her as a citizen.
Citizen.
As a citizen.
Any of the board is citizen.
I'll jump in. I sat on one of the legal reviews prior to the last resubmission, and I thought things were headed in the right direction. I firmly believe, as I did when I was on the town board, when it was first introduced, that we needed to do something then, and we definitely need to do something now. We need to try and preserve our residential community as best possible. We also need to make sure that we're making it so that people can rent their property in a safe manner. Is that a fair statement? That's my feelings.
I think the safety issue is probably the one we were aiming at most on both sides, the rent, and the renting.
Want to make sure that when people come here, they're getting something that's decent. We want to make sure the neighbors are protected from over parking or septic's backing up. Anybody else on the board?
Doesn't R1 already do that?
R1 does. R1 does, but
Needs updating.
It doesn't, it only covers residential districts. So if you're in a commercial district and you're just renting your house out, just your house, you don't have any
Oversight,
coming
oversight.
in, or no Department of Health coming in and regulating what you're doing.
Why don't we just extend R1
That's
to the whole
that's
town?
what-
Right, but I mean, why have, there's things in here I don't read well.
It's been 18 years,
2002.
2020 years. 20 years, it'll possibly be 21 years. There are updates that are needed. That's why they've been back and forth with legal and they're asking for responses. If you think some are overbearing, the public thinks they're overbearing, or if they don't think they go far enough, this is the solicitation we're looking for. And I think the long public hearing process will allow that.
Roger?
Huh? And again, this isn't the public hearing yet. This is,
Right.
do you feel that this, I guess the best way to propose this is, do you feel the document is crafted well enough to schedule a public hearing and start the process? I do.
Well, I met with them at their last meeting, or I don't know, if it was their last meeting, a meeting not too long ago. Had a couple of comments and ideas. I see you didn't really change anything from what was there. And I'm against quite a few things that are in this, so. Where you want to bring it out or however you want to do it. And I also agree with you, you can't do a public hearing in November and vote something through that nobody's here for.
No.
So either do it and you keep it open like you want to do, or just open it up in May and do it. You do.
If you go to page 9 and you look at the wording, I changed what the legal staff gave us, just the dates, none of the verbiage. I'm proposing that it's going to be, when we close the public hearing eventually, that it would be for the adoption of local law number 1 of 2023. So even in the public hearing, this will make sure that we cannot close it in 2022. It has to stay open.
That makes total sense.
Okay, that's the only change I've made there. And again, that gives us that long to work on it. And I believe we're allowed to work on it during the public hearing process prior to adoption. Ray, you had your hand up at one point.
I guess the one thing I wanted to say as well, though, is we cleaned up the process. So it made it something that we could live with. We're gonna expand the permitting process to all the zones. There's quite a bit of work that has to be done, so we cleaned it up to make it a little bit more streamlined, to only have hearings when we needed to have hearings. Until, and actually make it a better process. So that, to my end, I think it reads a lot better than the other law, if you will, and it actually goes straight forward.
Was it timing issues you had?
Well, I've got the moratorium of the sales I don't like. The rental, you can't rent anything less than 6 months, which means you can't rent monthly to anybody.
Without a permit.
Without a permit.
Right.
Correct.
You can rent monthly,
Month to month?
month to month, you can rent
It
month to month,
says less than
Or-
6 months.
for more than 6 months. You have to have a year lease,
Right, and what if they're renting month by month? It's not a year lease. Month by month
So
is month by month.
2 months.
month-to-month tenancy is considered a primary residence. When someone rents your home month-to-month tenancy.
Yes.
That's what it's called. It's that's still their residence. It's not the same as a short-term vacation rental when you're renting.
Right. So short-term vacation rental to me is weeks.
but we have
Yeah.
snowmobilers that rent per month, so.
And they wouldn't be considered short-term tenancy because?
That's the struggle.
Yeah,
That's the struggle.
This isn't their primary address.
Right,
basically.
right. Like I said, I think,
So, and actually, Herb, it doesn't say you can't rent to them. All it says is you need to get a permit.
yeah,
And-
I
and
understand.
To make sure that you have smoke detectors, to make sure your stairs are, you know,
Right.
proper. Nobody's gonna fall down their stairs and then sue
Right,
you after
right.
because they were.
Right, and I also suggested that you implement this over a longer period of time, so you don't have everybody crowding Amy's office all at the same time. Originally, I don't know if it's still in there, it was 60 days. From 60 days from when the law passes, everybody's gotta be compliant. And,
Well, everyone in R1 already is.
correct, but
So
you're
then
opening
maybe-
this up to quite a few more places.
It's really not that many. I mean,
Oh, I think it is.
Well,
I think, it is.
because most of them in the commercial districts are motels or cottage colonies.
they're
Already
rural
exempt.
residential,
Because they're going through the Department of Health. They
rural
don't have to
residential.
come get a permit.
Rural residential, everybody on South Shore Road, all the way down through is renting. And none of them are considered in the residential area.
That's
so-
why we hired John.
I think you could step it,
She's ready.
He's ready.
you could step it. So you do this area, then this area, then this area. That way, when the renewals come, they don't all come at the same time also.
They're staggered now somewhat. I mean, usually.
Yeah, because people who started did not, everybody started at that same point.
Right.
Yeah,
And a lot of,
Yeah.
these people. I warned that, so a lot, even some that I have not needed to do inspections.
Yep.
Because like a couple down the road from you,
sure,
I've already done those inspections because they had a problem with renters.
yep,
So they asked me to come and do the inspection. Basically to save them from a lawsuit if it proceeded the way it was going, and it didn't. I did my inspections, so it helped them.
and your moratorium idea, what's that all about?
That's to give people a chance to realize that maybe they should rent to year-round residents more than short-term.
So somebody who's renting right now wants to sell their place, they can't rent it for 2 years after they sell it to the new
You can rent it. You can rent it to somebody that's gonna live there month to month to month.
people. Right. So, no, not gonna, I'm not in there. And, if you're gonna do something and you wanna do something for residential, for locals, you give the people that are doing that an incentive, like a tax incentive, or do it the other way. Not, I don't think this is gonna do anything for anybody.
Honestly, if you do the math. If you do the math,
Yep.
if you do a spreadsheet and show what you pay. Out of your. Short-term rentals and what you make on a long-term rental. That long-term renter is paying their utilities and their cable and their
Sure,
plowing and their shoveling and their heat.
and they're
all that.
destroying the
With
house.
Short-term rental. They're not paying any of those things, it's all out of your rental income.
Right.
And.
And your building's taking a much bigger hit when people are in there year round.
I disagree.
yeah, I disagree.
I've rented for a long time.
Well,
My tenants have always taken better care of the home because.
You've been very fortunate.
I have been.
You've been
I know
very
that.
fortunate.
I know not everybody is that way.
Yeah.
But I will say, when you do the spreadsheet and you accurately figure the true 6 to 7 weeks of summer that you rent, and then your winter seasonal, and you do the math. I did it for the apartment at Kate's house before I ever rented, and I had clients at Rocky Point signing up for that place.
Mhm.
And I did the spreadsheet, and it was a savings. I would have made $500 more renting short term, but it was a savings to me by not having the hassle of turnover cleanings, maintenance every couple of weeks or weekly. And honestly, the money has been better. Like, I made more money by renting long-term to a local than I made or would have made doing short.
I think that's, you've done well.
I don't see how it's gonna bring the cost of housing down by doing the moratorium. I think the price is still gonna be here, whether that local person can afford it or somebody out of the area. It's not gonna.
That's not the intention.
Yeah, I don't think that was.
I thought that
I
was
thought
the
that was
intent.
the intention, was to get off the short-term rental market. Could happen under COVID. Everybody bought and all of a sudden everything's for rent and you can't buy and you can't live anywhere. The
Right.
intention was to slow that down.
The only way they could slow it down by doing this.
Yeah, and it works. And if you don't do it, if anybody's been down to the Outer Banks or to Hilton Head or Modesto Island or any of that area down there, where it's gone all rental. I mean, everything's a rental. You might as well just call it one big motel with varying degrees of what the rooms are like. I'll weigh in a little bit on my apartment building. I got very lucky with my renters. I probably didn't charge enough rent. Sorry, Pete. They set the new owner of the building up a little bit better if I charged you more when you moved in. And my top renter, he's the planning board chair and he's been there for 30 years. Long-term rentals work really nicely for locals. That's my belief. I think that this is good as drafted. I just, I get your feelings. I think some of them may be unwarranted. I don't,
They might be, but.
but
they're
that's just my
feelings.
personal feeling.
And, yeah, so.
Well, but what we have in front of us tonight, and Peggy, I do see your hand, but they did ask what the board thought. Isn't so much the adoption of it right now is, can we start the public hearing process to hear what others have to say? They may feel the same way as you do. They may feel the same way as I do. It's up to the board to try and figure out what the people want at this point. Maybe not necessarily what we want. I haven't heard from this side of the table.
Interesting, you're almost like now we're trying to slow tourism down. I that's how I see it. I don't know where this goes. I get the mechanism. I get the idea, the concept, something's gotta be done.
We're trying to slow it down, but we need people to live here if we want tourists to keep coming here. Because we don't have people that live here are able to work in the restaurants and work here or there. You see everybody struggling, like, look, like nobody's open tonight except for Screaming Eagle barely and because they had to close, because they had no help, they stretched 3 restaurants, and they still couldn't find enough help to put somebody over here. So we're not trying to slow tourism down, we're just trying to make sure that there's people here to serve.
And to put people on a level playing ground, the one thing that's been mentioned over and over again is, we saw this as an issue on the lakeside when people were renting without any health department oversight or town oversight. It's unfair competition to the cottage colonies, in my opinion, and those that are going the extra mile to make sure that the hotels, motels, have what they're supposed to have. Now you've had people push off water into the town and down the dirt roads, literally to rent their houses to try and make ends meet. Let's just know the basics after we get through the who, how, when, or how much is how many people are going to be sleeping there? Where are they going to park? What's the septic like there if you're not on the sewer? These are just basic requirements that I believe in. I think we're getting caught up in some of the timing issues and some of the other issues. Maybe they can be tweaked. Can we get this resolution passed to start the public hearing? Is there enough meat here to move forward?
I was on the planning board when we did the first one
Mhm.
for the R&R. So I was in a favor of that one. So I have nothing against the public hearing. I'm not in favor of people buying a property for Airbnbs. I'm not a supporter of that.
That's the board. Peggy, I saw your hand was up and down, up and down.
I just wondered where you can see where the differences are. I mean, you're changing the local law, but where can you?
I have a red copy.
Well, yeah, we can post both of those. Well, now that this is like, if they move forward and open a public hearing, then we can put all that on there.
Because otherwise you would have no idea of knowing.
And it's more than what just that is. Yeah, that's
And we want to make sure they're clearly labeled which is which.
have red
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
So it would be.
Inlet.org.
Okay, Julie, I see your hand up.
Not Inlet NY, but
I mean, under what?
there were motels and cottages. I'm sorry.
I didn't know there was
Oh, sorry. It'll be under.
Town of Inlet's website.
tab, it says public notices,
Mhm.
right? Is that?
Mhm.
that's what I wondered.
I've gone on the town website before.
And you
and
can
have a Very
search,
difficult time finding different things.
so you can type anything in the search box and it should pull up everything you know about that. But you should.
Julie?
There were motels and cottages in Inlet that were not full over the summer on the weekends. I feel like our responsibility is to our locals, who this is their bread and butter, this is their main job, this is their life. They should come first over people who are buying second and third homes and making extra cash to pay those off. So I don't feel like we're trying to slow down tourism at all, when I have friends who I would keep my vacancy sign up because the traffic never made it to Seventh Lake. Even though there are great places to stay up that way, they just don't get the same traffic that we get because everybody passes us to get to downtown Inlet. So I don't think that they are attempting to slow tourism in any way. I feel like our responsibility first should be to our locals. And the end.
Thank you. All right, we have a resolution, for legal purposes. I believe this is one of those I better read. Amending the Town of Inlet Code to establish regulations for short-term rentals. Whereas the town board is considering adoption of proposed local law number 1 of 2023, entitled "The Local Law to Amend Chapter 160 Zoning of Inlet Town Code for the regulation of short-term rentals, and to repeal and rescind ordinance number 1 of 2002 of the Town of Inlet. And whereas adoption of this local law is authorized by New York Municipal Home Rule Law 10, and whereas Municipal Home Rule Law 20, I think these are the chapters, right? Chapter 10, chapter 20, requires the town board to hold a public hearing prior to the adoption of any local law. And now therefore be it resolved that the Inlet Town Board shall meet and hold a public hearing on November 8th, 2022, beginning at 7:45 PM at the Inlet Town Hall, 160 Route 28, Inlet, New York, to hear all interested persons and take any necessary action provided by law concerning proposed local law number 1 of 2023. And be it further resolved that the town board further authorizes and directs the town clerk to provide notice and or referrals regarding the proposed local law as required by state and local laws. And be it further resolved that the town board further authorizes and directs the Inlet town clerk to publish and post a notice of public hearing concerning proposed local law number 1, 2023, in the manner provided by law, and to make a copy of the proposed local law available for public inspection in the town clerk's office following the adoption of this resolution and until the public hearing is closed. Duly authorized, adopted, hopefully, this 11th day of October, 2022, at the following vote. Will the clerk call the vote?
Councilman Bronzel,
I'll say aye, just because I want to know what people think.
okay, Councilman Schmidt,
All right, I'll go with him.
Supervisor Fry,
Aye.
Councilman Levy,
Aye.
and Councilman Townsend.
Aye.
So it passed unanimously. There were no noes and no absence. There will be a public hearing at 7:45 at the next town board meeting. And again, it is my intention to make sure that that stays open until the beginning of next summer so that all can be heard. All right, that's that. It's not an easy one. Webb has been struggling with this mightily, and Webb did not have the benefit of having something passed in 2002 that worked for 20 years. Let me make my agenda back to the top. All right, assessor codes, parks, building are attached. Seeing as how we have the assessor codes, parks and building and information here, does anybody from those departments have anything they would like pointed out tonight? Adele, we'll start with you.
Nothing necessarily pointed out in my report, but I will mention though that I did have a conversation with Mike Farmer about getting a new snowmobile permit program soon. Yeah, I asked them to make sure that myself and Bonnie are included in any sessions and updates. I suggested we invite IT as well, so the back end works. So hopefully that'll happen soon.
When did you talk to him?
I picked up snowmobile permits, so, was it 2 weeks ago?
Just got an interesting letter from the town supervisor down in Webb. They're looking to get rid of our 14% plan and give us $50,000 instead. Flat rate on top of the sales that we do here. But if we can generate more sales here, we get that 50 plus whatever sales we generate here. I'd like to point out to them that if we get a better program in place, that might actually turn out to bite them in the behind. That they might want to stay the course with what we have, get the new program in place, and then everybody work hard together to sell the permits. So that's the conversation we're gonna have to have. So she did say at the end of her note that we would like to meet with you and your board to discuss this agreement further. So I think further discussion is warranted on what you just said. Glad to hear that Mike's on board with a new program. Thank you. Parks.
Yes, a couple updates. The side by side has been ordered. Hopefully take delivery in November. I did go ahead and order the new rink liner for Fern Park for ice skating. Met with Mary today and she said the youth commission would pay half of that, which is awesome. Auctions International, we have the snowmobile and drag on. They went live 10 hours ago. And the snowmobile is already up to $2,900. So.
And climbing. I had a conversation with Mary this afternoon too, and she said that went well with you, and she's in favor of having that youth commission building moved to where the park, or the benches are right now. And that there will be no outside rink this year.
Yes.
But Webb is donating their, what do you call them?
Yes.
Not just the nets, the boards, the sideboards, and for an outdoor rink, if it were to happen. I want to be very careful and say if it were to happen. And Mary and I had a long conversation about who would maintain that rink, and it's very well understood that the Mighty Loons are talking about maintaining that rink. And I also broached with Mary that possibly the youth commission could step in and help, maybe hire somebody to shovel and wet it down too. And she seemed to be in favor of that, but it's early discussions yet because there will be no outdoor rink this year. And I wanted to make it perfectly clear that it would be almost impossible for us to maintain both rinks. An outdoor rink takes a lot of work. And as long as the Mighty Loons know that, we're very receptive to looking at having one there. I didn't mean to step on your toe.
I totally agree with that. I think it's a great idea as long as we can make it work. I have looked into some sheds. They are a little more expensive than we first thought. I have some pricing. I'm still waiting to hear back from another company. But you're looking at $12,000 to $14,000.
A little bit more than we thought.
To get
But not a
the length you need.
but not a lot.
So.
All right, get some more prices. Amy. Any good news from codes and assessing?
Well, today is my first day back, as some of you know. We were out sick for a week, but we did cover all the active jobs this morning that were underway with this work, and everything looks good.
How's Mr. Rouse working out?
Very good. His first full class is starting on October 31st and runs into the first week in November. Next week I have 1-day seminar. It's both post credit and credit for Climate Smart in Saranac.
Very good. Excellent. And I also had something on here, parks for the winter workforce. I know I didn't talk to you about it yet, but we won't find out for a week.
The 17th.
17th.
Yep.
If we
Kind of have a backup plan. Stephen. That he's willing to work pretty much full time this winter if need be.
Very good. Very good. All right, that takes us to the highway department. Sean, you're it.
We hauled garbage and recyclables. Hauled garbage and recyclables for Long Lake as their trailer is still out of service. We took down the Fall Festival banner and put up the Kids Day banner. Picked up and took back Town of Webb's band shell for Fall Festival. Thank you to the Town of Webb for the use of their band shell. We worked on the Townsend Trail. Installed a new culvert up on Uncas Road. Assisted Long Lake with the installation of a larger culvert up on Brown's Track Road. Graded the Uncas Road. Fixed the washout up on Jones Road. Started to blow leaves off the roadways. We regraded and added some gravel on the road around the wastewater plant. And we helped Webb with some paving and hauling sand. We met with Lenny from Hamilton County Soil and Water on a culvert up on Parkhurst Road that's gonna be needed to be replaced in the spring. And we've been painting our plows, chippers and rakes. Coming up, we're gonna be hauling garbage and recyclables, and we're gonna keep hauling Long Lake stuff till they get their trailer back. We're gonna start getting our snow equipment ready for winter. And we're still waiting on the county shoulder machine to put the shoulders on the Uncas Road, keep blowing leaves off of roads and walkways. We're gonna take down the Kids Day banner, and we're gonna put up the post for roadside banners for events. And probably a bunch of other things that I didn't get a chance to put into the report.
Thank you, sir. Transfer station,
As of right now, we're open 7 days a week, from 8 AM to 11:45 AM. And then 1 PM to 6:45, 12 to 1 daily for lunch. Starting November 1st, we'll be open 4 days a week, same hours as before, but closed on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hamilton County has gone to a single stream recycling system, which means we're taking all plastic containers, tin cans, and all paper in one container. Cardboard and glass are to be in separate containers. There are 3 containers in the transfer station for all these recyclables. This whole thing is a work in progress, and we will adjust when necessary. If anyone has any questions on where anything goes in the facility, please don't hesitate to ask the attendant. We're here to help.
everybody hear that about the recycling? It kind of started before we thought it was gonna start. So if you were surprised when you went up there and saw things differently, there wasn't a lot of time to advertise this. The county was gonna advertise it a little earlier, but one place where we were taking stuff shut down and one place opened up and said, please bring us your stuff. Tracy jumped in. He's our county guy. And so far, I think it's working out okay. Pete, working out okay?
Very well.
Nobody's giving you a hard time?
Yeah.
Don't give Pete a hard time. Or Tina, sorry, Tina or Pete. Anything else, Sean?
No, sir.
Don't give Sean a hard time either. You can give me a hard time. I get paid money to get given a hard time. I deserve it. Any questions of highway or transfer? Town clerk's report.
Revenue for September was $49,400.55. 31,000 of that was sewer rents. And the rest were cottages, kind of a late deposit of cottage rentals and that kind of thing. We need a resolution we never made a resolution to establish the climate smart task force. We made a resolution to support them. And is that how I would say it? Support them?
The resolution was made to acknowledge that it's a
Right.
climate smart community, but they're looking for a resolution that established a task force. I mean, basically established one way back then, but there was no resolution that said that the town board was gonna recognize a task force, a climate smart task force that was gonna do all these.
So if we make a resolution now to acknowledge it now, is that gonna negate any work that they've done prior to this?
I don't know.
Can we make a resolution that says we acknowledge that
It was created
That
then?
was created back
did
then.
back then and we support it and all that?
We can make any resolution we want. Will it hold water?
Yeah. Well, we can try that.
When did we create the task force?
January of,
Oh, I had that other-
8 years ago.
yeah, it was before COVID.
18 or 19?
It was 19, I think. No, it was 19.
July 9th, 2019.
Yeah.
I move the town board of Inlet recognize the task force that was created on July 9th, 2019, and the work they've done hence.
That works for me.
Is that like a legal word, hence? Henceforth.
Henceforth.
Thank you. Incomplete statement as usual. Motion's been made.
A second.
In discussion, did I interject that it was a climate smart task force in there? Yes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Let us know if we need more.
Yeah, and hopefully this will get us recognized on that climate smart website finally, because we'll be able to check more boxes.
Haven't we already received money for the good works we've done?
Done, no,
Oh.
very frustrating. Very frustrating.
Okey dokey. Oh, thank you. Anything else from the town clerk?
Nope, that's all I have.
All right, schedule a 2023 budget hearing. The timing being what, a week before the general election, but not more than
8 days.
After?
Yeah.
and the general election is the date of our next board meeting, the 8th. Does that mean we can schedule one that night? The first time in many years?
I believe so. Yes.
I would like to schedule a budget hearing. Got a public hearing opening at 7:45. 7 o'clock. Start the board meeting early.
I'm fine with that.
Sure, works for me, whatever you do.
We'll duly make sure that that's posted at your office, the library, and online.
The post office, yeah. Online.
Your office, the post office, and online, and in the legal papers. For the budget hearing at 7 PM on the 8th. All right. Sure, everybody's noticed, if you didn't get your boat out in time or have been driving by, that the boat launch work has been moving forward, I think faster than any of us thought it was going to, not without its issues or problems. Julie, you sent me an email that you might have some more information. Is it information you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's not good news. The plant that was going to do the road closed a week early on them. So they can't blacktop the driveway now until the spring.
It was so close, it was so smooth and.
And so as they also don't believe they're going to be able to put the fence up, they might put the posts in. They've already started.
On one side, the posts are in.
Well, they did that because people were cutting through the boat launch to go down to the water, but so that was one reason they started there, but so they might put the posts up. But they think right now that's as far as they would get.
So they're almost done.
Yeah, it's so much more complicated than I think we even realized. I don't understand exactly all these trenches they're building and huge, what is it? Concrete pads and pipes and what is it? Dry wells and.
For water.
All the runoff. They can't let any of that water run across pavement down into the lake. Because nowhere else in the Fulton chain of lakes is water from the pavement bearing sand or salt
Yeah.
running into the lakes. I applaud them for doing it right in one place.
They're about halfway up, so I don't know how much further up they're gonna go. So that could take a little while, but which also, I know the town's stance on the boat launch being open for snowmobilers or whatnot. But now with all of this stuff changing, I'm hoping that the state will make it abundantly clear that it's probably not necessarily gonna be safe to go, but I know that's on them, so. But I don't think it's gonna be rideable, they said, so.
And it is totally on them.
Yeah,
It is their launch. They decided to do the work when they decided to do the work. They could have started this work next spring and done it all in one fell swoop.
what I'm worried about, and I'll take it up with the DEC people who have been very helpful. This last week was very bad for all of us surrounding, to the point where it felt like we were experiencing an earthquake. Like 8 to 9 hours a day, stuff was falling off our walls and off our shelves. And we had about 4 or 5 guests complain, Like, and that was the first time they actually said, it's ridiculous, I can't get my Zoom call, I'm trying to homeschool my kids. We had a variety of weird complaints come from it. I offered everybody their money back. They all said no. But I'm really, really hoping that they are able to get this finished before Memorial Day weekend, because I don't want our guests in June to have to go through what the guests in September just went through. But I know that's something really you guys can take care of, but I'll talk to Rob about it and hopefully he can help. I think they want to get it done. It's not, I don't think they're dragging their feet, but it's just,
Except for that rainy week when they didn't do anything. I mean, they started in 3 days, they had stuff tore out.
yeah.
And the last week and a half, they've gotten done what they've gotten done.
They
I'm,
work very long hours, or they're like 7:30 till at least 4:30, 5:30, some days 6. They're really nice people, and I know they want it. They're as frustrated as everybody else about this, so. But that's the update.
and I did have my car down there with Mrs. Supervisor, in the passenger seat, but I snuck in between equipment. I didn't cut in from the side road. Make that perfect.
You were not the one I was referring to.
Oh, I know. I'm guessing it was Sunset Picture Takers.
Nope, it was kids, I think, up to no good.
That's right. The one whose car battery died, right?
And then their car battery died. So, yep.
And again, I can't tell you how many complaints I received by people that weren't able to pull their boats out. I know when I took my boat down to the marina over the weekend, I was trying to get mine out last and in last for some reason. Rick was pulling his hair out down there because they had made deals with all the other marinas up and down the line that still had boats out on the lake to pull them out at the boat launch here. But it did work. It was a pain for them, but it has worked. They still could have done a different timing on it for you, for the boating traffic, but they don't live here. All right. Town Hall parking lot extension. It's no secret that more parking is desired. I know Dan's been working on trying to get a National Grid pole. Well, I actually said National Grid pole moved.
She'll move the pole as soon as the light guy, Bradley Smith, removes the light.
There you go.
So that's what we're waiting on.
So
Promise me on the agenda for him.
So if we can get that moved, we're gonna beg somebody else that's got some heavy equipment. To help us maybe dig out a little area and put some more parking spots in. If at all possible.
Just add it to the list.
Just add it to the list. I know. He loves when I add things to his list, but it's gonna be one of those things that's definitely needed. I know at some point in the next couple of years, we're gonna need to budget money for possibly repaving part of the parking lot, or at least sealing it better. You know, we can probably go a little bit farther towards the tree line to give us a little bit more room. I mean, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but the last couple of years with these 4-door trucks with long beds on them, it's becoming an issue out there. It's almost like we need to designate some areas for them to park. I love when they park right out next to the handicap parking spot out by the road.
New Jersey's a good place for them.
Now. If I had a gap, order.
Let's go in the minutes.
They're her minutes. If she wants to put them in the minutes, she can put them in the minutes. If she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to. All right, that brings us to the last public comment of the night. If anybody's been sitting there long enough and has anything else they want to say, now's your opportunity. George?
Just a question, just thinking about your, public, hearing starting November to May.
Mhm.
You think somewhere in your motion, you should say you have to temporarily close it at each meeting? And then reopen it at each meeting?
No, you actually state at the end of the meeting that the public hearing will be held open, will be left open. That allows comments to come in online and via the mail.
Oh, okay. all
Yep,
right.
we actually have to state it at the end of the meeting that the public here, we have not closed the public hearing, it remains open.
And then the second thing too is with that being open for so long, should the minutes reflect that the original code may be amended based on the public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was in the minutes, your motion.
It wasn't in the motion, but that can also be in the motion that passes it
Okay.
at the end. Yeah, because, yeah, we're not.
Right, you don't, to be determined, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it doesn't have to be. If it doesn't pass, it's not gonna be, if it doesn't pass, it's not gonna be in there.
Right.
So you don't put anything in there that doesn't pass. But no, fair points. anything else? Peggy, I understand you're leaving town. You sure you don't have anything else? Okay. Folks, thank you very much for coming. Thanks for listening to us. I don't know when my back's gonna feel better, but I'm guessing it's not before the snow flies to walk that, but who knows? What's that? I struggled up, I struggled up there with Mr. Deming the last time, so, but, we'll see. All right, thanks, guys.
Future Mark, they're not coming down until there's a firm plan.
Point of clarification. The road for the private property, that's part of the deal. We have to put that road in for our parking lot and he gets access on his lot for it. That's part of the swap. That's part and parcel. That said, it's one of the things that I've added to his list. I don't see it happening very soon. Do you?
I might get the culvert in this year.
The culvert in.
That'll help my snow plow get around that corner and not have to back out a half a mile.
You wanna make that one radius and I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
But I don't believe we're cutting the road in prior to the end of the year,
Okay, thank you.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Anything else? If not, a motion to pay the bills, motion on highway,
Second.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of paying highway bills? Aye, so passed. Motion on general and sewer bills,
Second.
discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, opposed? None, so passed. All right, our next meeting will start at 7 for the public hearing on the budget. See you then if you want to come. Thanks, folks. Motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second.
Oh, wait. No motion to adjourn. One last piece of business. Inlet Youth Commission. They would like to add to the Youth Commission Melissa Quinn and Sarah Cuckho. Do I have a motion to add these two to the Youth Commission?
I'll move that.
Second.
Discussion? I'd like to thank Melissa and Sarah for stepping forward to serve on the Youth Commission. This brings us to a full Youth Commission board, I believe, again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.